My name's Jo. My business is Get Wildly Free. Meeting my goal, which was to be a head of comms by the time I was 30. Maybe 6 months after that, had my first mental health crisis. And then maybe 6 months after that, had my second. I engineered my own redundancy, which I feel was a real masterstroke.
Wow.
So I guess I've always been kind of rebellious in that way. Like, our purpose needs to be our work. And like, we need more than those 7-8 hours of peace.
Everyone has that voice in the back of your head going, nah, you ain't good enough to do that. That ain't gonna happen for you. That's only for the selected few. Or this isn't gonna happen because you didn't do this. Do you remember that time you didn't respond to that email?
While I think trading goats for milk is great, I guess I'm a bit of a oddball. Like, yes, ableism in workplaces is so rampant.
Welcome back to the Not Quite Pod. Today we've got Jo with us. Jo, do you just quickly want to introduce yourself and let everyone know a bit about yourself?
Of course. My name's Jo Hooper. My business is Get Wildly Free, and I help people do just that. Basically, stop living the way that the world tells us we should and live the way that they want to.
And for that reason, I am buzzing for this conversation. So the first thing I'm going to start with is, can you tell us a bit more about you? Because I think with my guests, whenever we have these discussions, it's always good to get a bit of context as how they've ended up where they are today.
Yeah, of course. My career to begin with was in communications. I was very ambitious, very hardworking, climbed the corporate career ladder very quickly. So I spent 10 years in communications and ended up meeting my goal, which was to be a head of comms by the time I was 30. Maybe 6 months after that, had my first mental health crisis. And then maybe 6 months after that, had my second. And by that point, and by that I mean like mental health breakdown, like a combination of anxiety and depression that made me like unable to function as a human. Was signed off work for like 4 months, didn't really do anything, had to like remind myself what I wanted in life, like what made me happy, from like going for walks to not looking at the news. And I basically realized that I just could not continue working in the industry in an employed role like I was and stay mentally well, essentially. So I engineered my own redundancy, which I feel was a real masterstroke.
Wow.
And yeah, well, I knew that there was like this big change coming, and I was in the company, and I was like, you know what? You can just make me redundant. That's fine. Just get rid of me. That works well for all of us.
Whoa,
Yeah.
that is like polar opposites to how anyone else would operate.
No. Yeah, and they were like, okay, sure. So that worked out well for me. And yeah, set up my business in 2019. And initially, basically through going through these mental health crises, I'd realized that there was a huge gap where companies wanted to support their people who had mental health issues, but they had no idea how to do it, because often, you know, people in HR or people in management positions had never experienced the sorts of things I had. So I started off doing that, working with companies to help them understand what people who were struggling with their mental health in their organization might be going through and how they could support them. But really, I just found that like constantly re-triggering for myself. And then I started to work with people who ran their own businesses to help them build businesses in ways that supported their mental health. And then that kind of broadened out into working with people who run their own businesses to help them live in the way that they want to and work in the way that they want to, outside of kind of the rules of the game that we're told that work has to be. So yeah, I'm like, I guess I'm a bit of a oddball. Like I'm child free by choice. I'm unmarried by choice. At the moment, I house sit for a friend in rural West Wales. Yeah, so that's
Love
me.
it. I love it. I mean, the first thing is, I think it's really important to have that conversation about mental health, because it's interesting. I myself have gone through my own professional struggles with mental health. But I think like it's one of those really weird things where if you've never been through it before, you have no concept of what it's actually like being in that hellhole and not knowing what to do next. And I think it's really interesting because whenever I see friends who are going through it as well, my perspective is completely different compared to someone that's not gone through it. And I think that's something that it's really hard, as you say, and from the beginning of your journey, trying to instill that in companies and going, look, unless you've done it and been there, it's really hard to understand. And that's why I'm here to sort of reiterate that. It's a really weird one because you spend so much time with your work team, colleagues, doing your work. So then it's like there is no escape. And then there's that horrible feeling of you finish work at 5 or 6 or whenever it is. And then you're like, I've only got 6-7 hours of peace before I got to do this all over again.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I think that's where I'm at now is like, we're not here for a long time. Like we are not here to live to work. And because of kind of, the largely capitalist world that we live in that teaches us that like productivity is the best thing in the world, we kind of fall into this idea that like our purpose needs to be our work. And like, we need more than those 7-8 hours of peace. We need like to be able to live and not just like live around the edges of work. And especially when you're like in the trenches of having mental health stuff going on, or when you've got caring responsibilities, or when, there's just other stuff going on in your life and in your reality, like that squeezes that time for life even further.
100%. And I think it's really hard as well, because as we say, we do live in a very capitalist world, and I myself, I play into that as well. And I am one of those people that has a belief that money doesn't make the world go round, but it plays a huge part in it, because financial stress is a huge thing for a lot of people. And then that then plays into, I'd love to be able to do this, and this, but financially I can't get away from work because I need it to live. And that's the really hard thing to juggle. And even like myself, when I was leaving school, I had no clue what I wanted to do. So then you sit there and you constantly feel like you don't fit, because you're like, I wasn't one of these people that was like, I want to do that. That's what I'm good at. That's what I want to do. I was one of those people going, everyone's doing this, so then I'm gonna go try that and see if that works.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember going through like a folder in the careers bit in our college, and it was literally like, it could have been the same as in like the 50s. It was like teacher, nurse, secretary. Like it was bizarre. But yeah, I knew that, well, when I left college, I knew that I wanted to work in politics. But then as I got to the point of getting a job, I was told, you have to work for free for a year in London before you can ever get a paid job in politics. And I was like, I don't want to be part of the system that perpetuates only rich people being able to do that. So I guess I've always been kind of rebellious in that way. But yeah, and you're totally right. Like, yes, I can think capitalism makes us like, obsessed with productivity. And yet we live in a world that's largely capitalist. Things cost money. We have to pay money to live, to be comfortable in our lives. So I think trading goats for milk is great. And I'm not quite there. Like, I will go and buy milk from the shop. Maybe one day I'll have a goat. And I think that's why I'm like a big proponent of working for yourself, because actually when you work for yourself, you do have more freedom to choose the way you want to work, how you want to do it, how you can and want to fit work into your life rather than fit life around your work.
And I think it's one of those things, because I've had that discussion before. If some people are better suited to working in the corporate thing, they prefer structure, they prefer that just go in, get it done, go home. And then there's others that do have that kind of more entrepreneurial, want to do their own thing, be in more control. It's a very weird thing, because I don't necessarily think one is better than the other. I think it's what I always say is like life is trade-offs. It's kind of like, yeah, you do this or you do this, but then there's always something that's shitty about one or the other. Yeah. So like, you've just kind of got to go, what can you find more peace in terms of direction that you take? But I think as well, social media plays a huge part of it. There's a huge thing of everyone sees these huge success reels of everyone doing really great things, but don't actually show the whole struggle that goes with that. I'm not the first person to say it, but it's thinking it's a really difficult thing for anyone that's struggling with their mental health in their professional life, or I'm thinking as well for any young people coming out of school, because you just have this like successful mentality shoved down our throats every day.
Yeah.
And it's a really weird thing.
Yes. Yeah. And like something since I've started my business that's been really important to me is like, one of my values is radical honesty. And I started my business off the back of 2 mental health crises. And so from the beginning, I've always wanted to share like those trade-offs, exactly as you say. Like life is all about choices, but you have to decide which consequences of choices you're willing to hold and withstand. So like, I left a corporate career where I had a very nice salary and I had to, all right, my work made me mental, but I could go in, do my work and go home, even if I went in at 7 a.m. and left at 8 o'clock at night. But I choose to hold the uncertainty of making my own income over the stress of the stress and all the other things that came with it of working for an organization.
It's really tricky. And I think let's dive into it. I mean, that's particularly what your business is built around. What is a freedom coach and what do you help people achieve and do?
Well, I guess I help them achieve what they want to achieve. Like there's no kind of set path for anyone. And I think that's the whole point. Like we get to choose our path, but often we forget that we have agency over those choices and we kind of end up working more hours when we're self-employed than when we're employed, or like being the worst boss to ourselves ever and never letting ourselves take a sick day, or like adhering to all these rules that we think we should. And actually, when you go self-employed, you often do it because you want more freedom and flexibility, but often you end up being like the world's worst boss to yourself. So I help people basically see the like rules and the shoulds that they're living by and working by, and figuring out, okay, how do I actually want to live and work, and what changes do I need to make within my business and within my life to make that possible? Yeah.
What about like in terms of like sessions with yourself? What sort of stuff do you approach first? Like if I'm new coming to you, Joe, and going, I'm really struggling with all of this. I constantly am doing stuff, constantly feel like I'm just spinning and never feel like I have any time for myself.
Okay, so I would say you are the absolute archetype of someone who comes to work with me. Someone who's like, all of this is happening. I don't know why or what to do about it. And so I often will just get my clients to like word vomit at me. And one of my like weird special skills that I never realized until I started working for myself was like, I'm really good at picking up the golden thread through all the things that you're saying. So for example, if you're like, oh my God, I'm just working all the time and I've got clients contacting me on email and DMs and Voxer and Asana and all these other horrible things. And then I've got like, I'm working with 20 clients at a time and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And I never have time to, look after myself or read or get outside or do what I want to do. I'd be like, okay, so I can see that the thread running through this is too many clients contacting you on too many different channels, and like probably some systems and boundaries that need to be put in place here. So I kind of get someone to just like word vomit at me what's going on at the moment, and then I kind of pick out, okay, so where do you want to be instead of that, and like what's the sort of golden thread path to get us there? And it's usually shifting some of your beliefs, often around like, lots of people I work with feel that they want to be of service to others, and often they will be of service to others to the detriment of themselves. So it's like often shifting some beliefs and then making some decisions and taking actions that take you along that golden thread to where you want to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so what we're obviously, I know myself being a people pleaser, that thing of like wanting to always help people is still something I'm dealing with now. But what is sort of the next steps once you go through that process of, right, we've established what type of person you are, what some of the problems are, how do you guide them through the process in terms of thinking myself? I'm very much one of those people that if you give me too much information at once, my brain just goes, "Ah," and that's kind of how my brain processes things. So if you've got a client that's in that situation, how do you guide them through the next steps in terms of, because I think it's hard as well, because I'd imagine it feels very much like, okay, over there where I want to get to feels like 200 miles away.
Yeah.
How do I gamify this to make this okay?
Gamify is such a good way of looking at it. How can I gamify this process? I think that's such a good thing for me to think about. But I guess there are sort of two routes. One would be, okay, what are the quick wins? So often people will come to me and be like, my God, I'm really struggling with this particular client. They're taking up so much of my time. Like, it's making me really stressed. And so I know that would probably have the biggest impact on them the quickest to deal with that one particular situation or that one particular thing. Or the other route is like, okay, let's turn this into phases. Like, what's the foundational stuff that we need to shift first? Then what does that allow us to do? And then, like, what are the kind of stages to get there? Because you're totally right. When you're like working all the hours, thinking about work all the time, feeling guilty for like taking time for yourself or doing something for yourself, the idea of like, oh, you could finish at 3 and go and, you know, be with your loved ones and read your book and do what you want to do is like, yeah, well, that's never going to happen. But if we can like break it down into phases, and also like take some of those actions that are going to have the biggest impact quickest first, then people can start to see, oh, okay, once I like lift that thing, I actually have so much more time, energy, and motivation to work through the phases.
One thing I find really interesting, and you've probably heard it before, is I always think of, I've lost my train of thought now. I always think of it's still going to be there tomorrow to an extent. So with clients and stuff, there is always that fear of, oh, but what if they don't think I'm responsive enough? But it's always going to be there tomorrow. So I always go, as long as I can move this a little bit today, it's still going to be there tomorrow. So I'll still get to come back and go again. Because if you try and tackle the beast all at once,
not tackleable.
No.
Especially when like, you know, this isn't necessarily like a linear thing. Like we've kind of all come to this place of being overwhelmed, overworking, lacking boundaries, lacking structure, lacking motivation to do what's right for ourselves. We've all come to that position from different ways. And it's like a bit of a sort of knotted, like a big knot of different threads that sort of need to be unpicked. And generally those are things like the beliefs that you have around work and around yourself and around your relationship to other people. They are kind of the structure of the way that you work. So like what your packages are, the way that you communicate with clients, the boundaries around that. And they are kind of like the decisions and actions that you take on a day-to-day basis. Like what you said about, oh, will the client worry that I'm not responsive enough? So like the way I would tackle that with someone is to say, okay, well, let's set out what your boundaries are around the way that you work. So clients have an expectation of how and when they'll hear back from you, and like make that really clear when you bring on board a client, put it in your email footer, pin it to the top of your Slack channel if that's what you use, so that you can alleviate that worry of, oh God, but it's been 2 hours and I haven't got back to the client. Well, that's fine, because they don't expect to hear back from me for another day.
Yeah, I would always set a 5-day response time. I know that sounds extensive.
No, I love that.
Buy myself some time. If I responded in 2 days, they're going to think I'm great.
Or not busy enough.
yeah. But then it's a really difficult thing, because I think it's respecting everyone's time. It's that whole thing of like the Uber theory of like, as you say, it's if they know it's coming, it always relieves that pressure.
Yeah.
So like if you can see the car moving, you're going, right, that's okay, I can see it coming. So then, as you say, with clients, it's just about going to them, this is how long it takes me to respond. Or the other thing I think I've got on my out of office is if it's urgent, WhatsApp me. Other than that, I work weird hours and I will get back to you when I can.
Yeah, and that's like, you know, that's part of the joy of working for yourself, and part of the agency that you have in working for yourself is saying like, actually, my energy is best at like 10 o'clock at night. So I don't really care what hours the world thinks I should work. That's when I'm going to work. I'm a 10 o'clock bedtime gal, so that's definitely not my time to be working.
I'm a very strange. I've had this discussion with friends. I'm a very strange individual. I'm not a morning person and not an evening person. You need to kind of catch me between like 10 and 4.
Me
It's like
too.
optimum.
I would say 11 and 3 for me, but me too. I'm sort of like a midday to early afternoon kind of gal.
Yeah. Yeah, and also it's that whole thing of like I need to start my day. You know that whole eat the frog mentality. I've been playing with that at the moment, and I'm like, I have a weird thing of like I have to start my day with something easy to get me in the flow, and then I can tackle the frog.
Yes, the eat the frog thing again for me is just like, like 75 hard, eat the frog, do this really hard thing, make your life as hard and uncomfortable as possible. Like, what is all of this bullshit? It's just like, I do not exist to work. Like, that is just a part of my life, and I want to make it as easy and fun and enjoyable as possible.
What advice would you give to someone? Obviously, you've gone through your own struggles. What advice do you wish you had when you were younger?
Well, that's such a good question. Because I never thought I would do my own thing, run my own business until I had this like mental health crisis period. So I guess I wish I'd known that you can do what you want. You can work and live the way that you want to. And yes, some people might think you're odd, but like that really doesn't matter. And you will be much happier if you actually live and work and make the choices that are right for you, because that kind of, for me, the constant anxiety and depression that came from it in my old career was the feeling that I had to constantly prove myself, and that I never felt like I quite lived up to the mark or the expectations. And actually now I set the expectations. And I still don't often feel like I meet my own, but it feels totally different trying to meet my own to trying to meet other people's expectations.
I think it's a really hard one as well, because I say you compare. It's that comparison to others of like, particularly if you've grown up in a situation where either you've got a chip on your shoulder, you've got a point to prove, that's something that has a huge impact. But one thing I was curious about your story is obviously having those really tough times in your corporate work and then making the decision to then start your own thing. Can you explain a bit more about like what that journey was like? Because I sit there and go, there's a middle ground, there's a middle bit here that would have probably happened, and oftentimes no one talks about it, of like, it probably wasn't the journey of, oh, I quit my job, had a mental breakdown, and the next day I was like, wait, we're going to do this.
You say that it was ridiculously quick, but no. So I first like started to get ill in like summer of one year. Then I sort of like pushed through it to a certain extent, and then I got ill again in the March of the following year, and then I was off work for 3-4 months. Then I did a phased return back. So by the end of that year I was sort of back working full time, but I also knew that all of this change was coming, and I also knew that I didn't want to be doing that anymore. I'd already had the idea for my business, and my thought process at the time was, in the whole restructure, I'm going to get them to give me a different job. And then after a year of doing that full time, I'll get them to let me go part time. And then I'll build my business up on the side. But they didn't want to give me the other job. So I was like, oh, I'll just make me redundant then, and I'll leave and do this. So I did actually pretty much set my business up the day after I left my corporate job, which would not be what I would encourage people to do, especially people who were still recovering from like serious mental health crises. But I was really lucky. I'd had a good job in a good company. I'd been there for a while. I got a good redundancy payout that gave me the financial buffer to be able to do that. And that's what paid me for a while I was building my business. I did get some support and help as well. Like I did some training with someone I knew and really trusted about like the practicalities of setting up your own business. And I got some coaching, and that did really help. But I would say that the thing that helps me the most now and throughout running my own business is connecting with other people who run their own businesses and are in a similar sort of position to you, because they get it. They get the fact that it's like constant therapy running your own business, constantly trying to like talk yourself down off the ledge. So yeah, my sort of middle ground was there wasn't really much middle ground. And it wouldn't necessarily be what I'd recommend to everyone.
Do you know what I find really interesting? As someone that's gone through it, not the same, but I'd imagine slightly similar thing of that they're like, oh, I need to get out of this scenario. Is I would not feel ready to start a bit like my confidence was way in the gutter for me to suddenly go, yeah, no, I'm going to start a business now.
Yeah, you know what? Like when I look back on it, I think what a lunatic I was for doing that. And I think, like that was a big risk for me to do that. And, 6 years down the line, I'm still doing it. So the risk has paid off. But I think it was a weird paradox in my old career. I was talking to a friend about this today, actually. I always knew that I was really good at what I did. Like I'd had the external validation. I'd had the promotions. I'd been, headhunted for jobs, and I knew that I was good at what I did, and yet I still felt like I was constantly trying to prove myself to other people. I think I never had the internal validation that stopped me from constantly seeking the external validation. And I knew that this idea that I had, that there was a gap in the market for it. And obviously that's shifted and morphed over the years, and I'm very happy that it has. But yeah, it is interesting you say that, because I must have felt pretty confident in myself. Maybe I need to remember that when I'm having my wobble days.
I wonder if it's maybe your reaction to your fight or flight. It was kind of like, fuck it, we've got to do something, so fuck it.
Do you know what? I think you're right. Like I think you're right. I that is a reaction that I can, see in other areas of my life where I'm like, fuck this, I'm doing something drastic about it. But thankfully it was the right drastic decision.
What's been like since then? Obviously you've now been doing what you're doing, or versions of what you've been doing for 6 years. What's been some of the like most pivotal moments that have been, not even the aha, just that was a big moment, or that was a thing that I always remember happening that turned me into this direction? What were some of those?
Well, that's a good question. Do you know what? I think some of the things that really stick with me, and this is probably very telling, are times where things have gone really well and I've actually found it quite hard to hold that and like be okay with that. Like I remember getting a huge invoice paid, like my biggest invoice paid ever, and I took a screenshot of my business bank account bank balance to be like, oh my God, there's this much money in there. Like not that I'm like swimming in money in the business every day, but I found that really hard and really confronting, that like I had done things that had gone really well. So I think like those moments where I like exceed my own expectations, and noticing my reaction to that has been so interesting for me. And I guess another thing, so I recently went on a business retreat, which I primarily went on to like go and meet other people in the same sort of stage of their business as I was. Because I live at the moment, the last couple of years I've been living very rurally. I very rarely leave the house, never mind see other people who work for themselves. And I felt like I really needed to like, find some people. And I did, but I also got to really do some work on like what I'm really doing this for. Like, yes, my business is about helping other people, but it was set up to help me. And like, that's what I want to help other people recognize, that they don't have to live and work for the benefit purely of other people. And on this retreat, I kind of realized and got to dig into and think about and get really clear on what is it that I'm doing it for? What's the thing, what's the life that I want to have as a result of working for myself? And that's something that I've always struggled to kind of identify for myself. And I think often it's because I I tell myself, oh, that's not possible, or that's too big a dream, or you're never going to have that. And on that retreat, I really did allow myself to like believe that those things are possible for me. And that was like 6 years into business. So probably should have done that sooner.
I think it's really hard because I say there's that whole thing of like set your goals to the moon and then you'll eventually land somewhere. And I think like it's really hard because as that question of like where do you see yourself in 5 years, that morphs and changes like no tomorrow. It's like the whole thing could do a 180 in 6 months, and then you're like, whoa, that did not turn out how I thought it was going to.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like, again, like working for yourself, literally like minute to minute, like huge things can shift and change, and the way you feel can shift and change. And yeah, I've never really been a big, I'm someone who chooses not to have kids, someone who like, I've never really lived in one place for, a really extended period of time. I don't see myself, being the sort of person who like buys their forever home and lives there forever. Like I'm kind of like restless in that sense. And so I've always struggled with like 5-10 year planning and goals. In my old corporate life, I was very focused on my 5-10 year goals. But actually, again, I feel like that was a coping mechanism. Whereas actually what I want is much more freedom and flexibility. But yeah, I have recently just been like, okay, you know what? Yeah, that is what I want. I am going to make that happen.
Do you reckon that comes from though, where obviously in the corporate world you kind of know what's going to happen, like the trajectory, what's roughly, whereas as we've just established in your own scenarios, things can change very quickly, so it's very hard to sort of plan. And then also, I think that then inhibits someone's ability to go, oh, in 5 years I'm going to be here, because in every entrepreneurial person's head, there's that bit of them that goes, all it takes is one domino to fall, and not everything could fall apart, but it could drastically impact everything I'm doing. I was intrigued as well when you said about the whole a large amount of money hitting your bank account and being like, fuck, how did we get here? I wonder if there was an element of it where you're like, can I replicate this again? Because there's always little voice in your head going, I'm confident in my own abilities, but there's always the devil on the shoulder going, but what if you can't? What are you going to do then?
Yeah. And like, what you said about, if one domino falls and there could be a ripple effect, but also it's the opposite is true as well. Like if one opportunity comes your way, then that can be the ripple effect that gives you loads of other opportunities, or takes you in a totally different direction, or makes something that you never thought about possible for you. And so I think and for me, part of like the dance of working for myself is reminding myself that it takes like one email to totally change what's possible for you, whether I send the email or I receive it. Like, if I pitch for a big speaking opportunity and I get it, and I get to stand up in front of 1,000 people, and in that 1,000 are like people who want to work with me and be coached by me, and other people who want me to do talks for them, and someone who wants me to run a retreat with them, and like I think you're always like peeking around the corner at what could be possible. And so, yeah, I think it's really hard to make longer term plans when you run your own business, because yes, the dominoes could fall, but also like amazing shit could happen that you just have no idea about, which is really exciting.
I think it also depends on like your industry, because if your industry is quite like linear, in terms of like, oh, okay, we've got certain KPIs we're going to hit, and then that's going to happen, and this is going to happen. If it's that kind of projection, whereas in other spaces, it's more fluid. It's a lot more like, as say, you get those talking opportunities, you get that really, because my thing is I end up with the most random opportunities coming around, and you're like, tough.
But you know what? The random opportunities are the brilliant ones. Like, I love that. I love the freedom of working for myself. Both, I can like spend half the day reading my book in the garden, but also like if I'm like, oh, that's a thing I could do, I can just go and do it. And I love that freedom of decision making and creativity. And yeah, like hello to the random opportunities. Yes, please. They sound fun.
What is the most random opportunity you've had this far?
I've done some talks in for some very interesting organizations. And I love that. I did do a talk in a government department once, at a very interesting time politically, which was very interesting. But yeah, I'm totally here for the random opportunities. Like, you want me to fly to Croatia to do a talk in front of how many people? Yeah, I'm totally up for that. Like, I'm so open to surprises in my business.
And I think that's advice I'd give to people in general. It's a fine balance, because it's that whole argument of don't stretch yourself too thin in terms of saying yes to everything, but also some of the weird and wonderful ones, even if you're like proper left field, I don't know whether I'm going to enjoy it, but sod it. When in Rome.
Yeah, exactly. You're totally right, though. Like, and stretching yourself too thin is like the antithesis of what I want to do. I want to spread myself nice and thick like butter on a crumpet. Like, yeah, I am not here for working my fingers to the bone. Done that. Didn't like it. Made me mad. I'll just work a little bit. Thank you, and really enjoy it.
It's interesting though, because we're seeing, I mean, I don't want to sound like my dad, but we're seeing a big shift in like people changing the way they work, in terms of like, I've seen a lot more people do, like, I think it's called like mini retirements. So like you take some time off of working, go traveling and do that thing. And that's, I think it's Gen X that are doing that. I'm terrible at knowing, because technically I'm technically Z, but I feel a lot more like a millennial. But
I'm an elderly millennial. And I feel it.
I'm proper on the cusp. I am proper on the cusp. Got a 6-year older sister, so I grew up very much more in the millennial space. But anyway, what I was saying was, like, we're seeing a lot more people shift towards, rather than that traditional mentality of like retiring and then all hell breaking loose when you retire. People are kind of like doing it gradually throughout their careers, and I find that really interesting. I think it's because we are seeing so much of a shift towards trying to look after ourselves, and it's a really good thing to see. But then I think, as we say, it's that how do we move that in terms of the whole world? Because obviously working for yourself is great, but then, as we said earlier, there's certain people that it just doesn't work for. So then how do we improve things for those people?
Yeah, it's such a good point. And I've not heard of the like mini retirement. I love that, because one of the things that I think is like, if we're waiting for retirement, mate, that's just so fucking depressing. Like, we should be like figuring out how to live our lives throughout our lives, not wait until we're like, for us, it's going to be like in our 70s till we're like state pension age. But yeah, the ability to live life not just around the edges while you're still like working age, in inverted commas, is so, I just think life is too short to let it pass us by, or to waste it working all the time. But yeah, the feeling able to, and being able to, and having the flexibility to do that when you work for an organization that isn't your own, is really hard, because, you know, we're seeing now companies post-COVID wanting their employees all back in the office again. And it's like, oh, was that just for those few years then? Like, that we need to be seeing people all the time again now, are we? And it's just such antiquated thinking, you know, like, the only reason that we all sit together in a room is because that's what we did in the Industrial Revolution. And like, we're not there anymore. And so we don't have to live and work like that.
One of my biggest frustrations with it, because I don't even think it's fully to do with companies. I think it's who leads the companies. So like, oftentimes you'll see the people that are pushing people back into the office are one of two groups. They're the people that want to have that control because they run a small business and they want to see bums on seats. Or similar, I can never get this word out. Similarly, it's the thing of like the big corporations that kind of, it's driven by either we hired very much a remote team and now we want everyone back in the office, but we don't want to tell Dave in Exeter that he's got to come into the office. So we're going to suddenly come up with this idea. Oh, it's company wide. Everyone that's involved has to be in the office. If you don't like it, lump it. And I think it's very much like the bit in the middle gets missed of like, there's definitely still companies out there that aren't bothered. They're like, look, if it works for you, it works for you. Because one of my biggest frustrations working very much in the disability space is one of the things we always used to see before COVID. I was part of this group of, I physically can't get into the office because, stairs.
Yeah.
And then I'd go, what about remote working? Oh, no, we can't do that. COVID happens and everyone's working from home. And it's then the sudden shift to go back. And it's like, guys, did we forget about the Disability and Inclusion Act and reasonable adjustments or what?
Yeah, like oh, yes, this is why I can't work in corporate anymore, because, like, yes, ableism in workplaces is so rampant, like, both from a physical perspective, like you say, like the difficulties in actually getting to and into the building, and from like a mental health perspective as well. Like, I might have an anxiety attack on the tube on the way to work, but I probably won't if I work in my pajamas from my front room. Like, as you say, did we forget that the Equalities Act is a thing and that you're legally obliged to make reasonable adjustments so that I can actually do my job to the best of my ability? It drives me insane.
There's so many loopholes with it though. Like, that's the worst thing, and it's that's my biggest concern, because everyone, like, I have this debate in my household all the time because my parents are very much have the belief. I'm like, no, we need to be back in the offices, back in the old days, and it's just
the
like
good old days.
We just need, because the biggest thing is, I'm not pro remote, pro non-remote. I'm pro whatever works for the individual. If they want to be in the office, because some people do, they can't cope with the level of noise and things going on in their house, so they want to get out and have that separate space. Go for it. Knock your socks off. Flip that round. What works for you, Dave? Oh, working from home works for me. Do that then. It's really like, it's like every business owner says the same old cliche. I'm like, I don't give a shit as long as the work's done. Yeah, that is pretty true. There is no, as long as you can show the results, why does it matter where you do the work?
Exactly. That's why, like, now that I work for myself, I don't want to employ anyone. I just want to be a company of one, but I'll like always work with other people like me who run their own businesses. If I need like support or help or services. And I will always say to people, don't charge me by the hour. Don't give a shit how long it takes you. If it takes you 20 minutes, like, it's probably worth way more to me than the 20 minutes it took you to do it, because you're really good at it and I'm really shit at it. So like, do it whenever you want, charge me whatever you want, like, as long as I can afford it, and we'll go through the pitching process so that I know that I can. Like, I don't care how long it takes you, where you do it, when you do it. Like, I would love it if you did the work for me from like the place that you really want to do it, whether that's in your garden or like around the pool or wherever. Could not. Like, you have a great time.
I will say this one thing that often gets pointed out: working on a beach, great in concepts,
so much sand.
Not even that, but I'm like, bro, how are you like, most of these people work remotely from a laptop, right? What laptop are you buying where you can read it in the sun? Where are you getting it? Has it got like an inbuilt umbrella?
Yeah, I'm not aware. As we've established, we both have red hair. We're both very pale. Neither of us are going to be sat in the blaring sun working. I'm going to be at most sat in the shade.
I must admit, I'm one of those people that I have to have my like workspace and non-workspace. I'm not I don't like merging the two.
Yeah.
I like, this is my workspace. This is where I do my work. Everything that happens outside there, not to do with it.
Yeah, I'm the same. I can, there are certain tasks and things that I can do, like from a cafe or in a different space outside of the house. But yeah, I like to work. I have a setup. I like it. Yeah, I like my pen part. I like my separate mouse. I like my separate keyboard. And I can't lug all of that around with me. I like it to be set up and then I can leave it there.
No, I'm exactly the same. It's really hard. I don't get these people that can just work like, hats off to them. I just can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got too much shit to lug around with me, basically.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And trying to get, on my perspective, trying to deal with that and a wheelchair.
Yeah. That's a lot of movement admin.
Yeah, not the one. In terms of like working with clients and stuff like that, do you think living freely is possible for everyone? Because I guarantee there's some people listening to this where they go, I don't think it's possible for me. I imagine the rebuttal is going to be, I've got kids, I've got this, I've got these, I've got this happening, I've got this responsibility. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what kind of business I would set up.
Yeah.
Is it possible for everyone?
I think it is, but everyone has different boundaries around what's possible for them. So like you say, if you have caring responsibilities, or if you have like responsibilities inside or outside of the home, then how much time you're able to have for yourself is different to the sort of time that I have for myself as someone who chooses not to have kids, who doesn't have caring responsibilities other than for many, many animals. So yes, I do think it is possible for everyone, but I think it's a choice. And I think some people aren't ready to make the choice. Like, okay, if you want to have more time for yourself and you want to live more freely, what are we going to change so that you can do that? And making change is hard. And as we were saying earlier, like every decision has consequences. Everything has a trade-off, and you have to choose what trade-off you're willing to live with. Are you willing to subordinate yourself to such an extent that you are not really living your life the way you want to because you don't want to make the changes? Or are you willing to kind of make some difficult decisions, make some changes in the way you think about and move through your life so that you can live the way that you want to? So yeah, I do think it is possible for everyone to different degrees and within different bounds, but you have to be willing to make the choices, and understandably some people aren't.
I suppose as well, freedom looks different to everyone.
Absolutely,
As we've said a couple of times, like some people work better in the corporate world, some people don't, and that doesn't mean, well, because it's all about, I suppose it's all about framing. It's all about what does freedom mean to you. If freedom is not having to worry about work and you go in, you go get your work done and go home, that is freedom. If that's your setup and that works for you, great. And I think it's that also reframing it in terms of like, it's to say that over dramatizing of like freedom is sitting on a beach every day and just doing a couple of trades and getting your money that way. That's fucking bollocks. Like,
exactly. And that wouldn't work for me because I would just be sunburned all the time. Yes, I would love to go to beaches sometimes, but actually for me, freedom is like, yeah, the ability to live where I want to live and to do the work that I want to do with the people that I want to do it with in the times that I want to do it. And yes, that takes work for me to set and uphold those boundaries and to arrange my business in a way that allows me to do that. But in a way, I'm kind of lucky because I came to working for myself off the back of having, being really mentally unwell. And so at the beginning, I had to do that. I could only work a certain number of hours on a certain number of days and do certain sorts of work. And now that's a choice for me. And I still take my meds. I still see a therapist. I still I still have bouts of anxiety and depression. But now it's a choice for me to work this way. But in the beginning, it was a necessity. And that kind of helped me in a way because it made me realize, okay, yes, I can do this. I can work the way that I want to because I need to.
what about like what some of the biggest challenges you faced on the journey of like creating this non-traditional work life?
I think most of the challenges are in my head because it's always me and the way that I talk to myself and the way that I'm always my own worst critic, and I'm always the one that is telling myself, oh, X isn't possible, or you're crap because you haven't done Y. And people tell me all the time that I need to be kinder to myself and treat myself like I would treat my clients. And I do. I am on a journey to doing that for myself. But for me, the biggest challenge in running my own business and working in the way that I want to is holding the belief that I can and believing in myself, essentially. Yeah. Always
It's a really
me.
tough thing. It's a really tough thing because I think everyone has that voice in the back of your head going, nah, you ain't good enough to do that. That ain't going to happen for you. That's only for the selected few. Or this isn't going to happen because you didn't do this. Do you remember that time you didn't respond to that email? Do you remember that time you completely blanked someone by mistake? It's these like really random voices that I don't think anyone talks about that much, but I think most people have them, of that voice that's like, yeah, but you should have done this, shouldn't you?
Exactly.
And then there's always
Yeah.
one event as well. There's always one event or one or two events that will constantly replay in your head going, yeah, but do you remember that time when this went wrong and you made a complete fuckery of this thing? And it's like, it's honestly, it's horrible because it's like mental torture.
It is. You're so right. It is fucking mental torture. It's like, honestly, on this retreat that I went on the other week, everyone was saying to me, like, for God's sake, speak to yourself more kindly. Like, you've got to, and I know, and it is, something that I'm really working on, is like, if you're constantly being told you're crap by someone, it's going to make you feel crap. And like, you're never going to do great work from a place of feeling crap or have a great time when someone's telling you that you're crap. And if that's the internal monologue that you've got all the time, and it's not all the time, but it, in those moments where it's hard, or like you say, where you've like, as soon as you said, oh, do you remember that email you didn't respond to? I was like, I know exactly the one that keeps being replayed in my mind. But yeah, I think that is the hardest thing, is like holding the faith in yourself and telling yourself that you can do it. And I know that I can. I've got 6 years of experience of doing it, of proving to myself that I can. But that is a muscle that I'm building and growing.
I would also challenge the people that have said to you, like, be kinder to yourself. While I 100% agree, 100% behind it, I would challenge them and say, so you telling me you don't have the devil voice? You telling me that you don't have this little voice going, Karen's awful, Karen's this, Karen should be doing that. Why don't I do that? Like, I think it's that thing of like, we often give the best advice to others, but then actually we don't actually have that ourselves. So while everyone does that, I'm guilty as charged, 100%. But to say to someone, you need to be kind of self when you're sat there shriveled up and can't, it's a really weird one, because I think we all need to be kinder to each other. And also, as we've said already, it's that whole thing of like, work isn't the end of the world. No. And admittedly, I fall into the trap all the time of like, work is everything. Got to do this. Got to get this done. Got to do this. Because basically my brain is like living with a perpetual, if I'm not doing something, I'm not achieving anything. That's not fun. And I should be doing this. But then that shows as well how much I fall into the capitalist trap of, no, you need to be doing 100 things at once.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, capitalism wants us to believe that being productive is the most valuable thing that we can do. A productive member of society. Like, why? Why do I need to be productive? Why can't I just be? Why can't I just exist? Sure, right. I'll do some productive shit sometimes, but like, that doesn't determine my value as a human. Yeah,
that's all right. The government currently think that all disabled people don't work because they don't want, that they can't or don't want to.
Oh God. Yeah, I have no words other than the middle finger.
Yeah, it's a really, it's a really like, it's that classic thing of someone commenting on something they don't understand. Yeah. And then that is essentially it. But the last question I was going to ask you is also, because people are probably listening to this going, oh my God, Joe, like, you're like miles down the road. I'm currently still in my 9-to-5 job. Don't really like it. Don't know what I'm doing. What can I do to start my journey?
Okay. 1, figure out how you like spending your time and do more of that. If you like exploring, going on walks, or like if you like gaming, or if you like reading, do more of that shit. Like, feed your brain with the stuff that you like doing. And then if you're thinking about doing something for yourself, setting up your own business, think about like what that could be, like what skills you have and what stuff you like doing, because for the love of God, do not set up a business doing stuff that you don't like doing, because it will be so hard and so horrible and you will never want to make it work. So for the love of God, figure out something that you like doing, and start. You don't have to set yourself up with a tax code. You've already got one. You can start as a sole trader. Yes, you have to file a tax return in January, but you can do it yourself on the government website. Just start, give it a go and see where it goes. And over time, you might be like, actually, you know what? Maybe I could reduce my hours at work so I've got a little bit more time to do this. Maybe I could actually get a part-time job so that I've got more time to put into my own thing. But also, if you decide that working within a kind of organization and employed environment is right for you, figure out how and when you want to work and have boundaries for yourself. Don't be picking up your emails out of hours. Don't be looking at your work phone out of hours. Don't be working when you're on holiday. Have boundaries and stick to them, because the way you behave sets other people's expectations of you. So if you start responding to emails when you're on holiday, people will expect you to do it all the time. And then your life is eroded even more. So you are allowed to have boundaries. Set them and stick to them.
That's 100%. And one piece of advice that I got given by my partner, who was given it by a friend, is a great piece of advice, which is if you spend your life at 110%, you've got nowhere to go. Whereas if you sit at a comfortable 80 to 70%, when that extra oomphe's needed, you've got it in the tank. Whereas if you're currently running on like full speed, the way I looked at it was like, I was like, that's kind of like if you ran a car at full speed for like an hour and a half, it'd eventually just go, yeah, no, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yes, exactly. And that's often how businesses or big organizations are run. They're run at like 98% capacity. So when someone gets ill or someone leaves the organization, they've still got all the work to do, but 10% less capacity, because they're running at capacity all the time. And like when it comes to us as individuals, like I personally want like a spacious, quiet, slow life, and I don't want to be running through my life, because I feel like that's just not the way that I want to spend the time that I have.
Yeah. I mean, also coming on to your point about like the whole setting boundaries and not answering emails while you're away and making sure that the time you work is the time you work. I'll be honest, I don't understand why I do and I don't. I don't understand why businesses still do it. I understand it from it's like that whole thing of trying to squeeze the last piece of value you can get out of your individuals. But what I don't understand is also, I'm like, flip that on its head, Dave. What if someone did that to you? How does that feel? Whereas I've always said, if I ever run a team and someone responds while they're on holiday, they're going on disciplinary for that reason and be like, I told you no, this is what's going to happen next.
What have you taken your phone? It's wild. And I think, you know, there are Daves out there who have drunk the Kool-Aid and who want to be working all the time. I would challenge them to be like, I don't believe that's actually what you want. I believe that's what you believe you should be doing. Like, I don't believe, Dave, that you want to be working on holiday. But there are some people in big organizations or like, you know, even small organizations, startups who are like, yeah, I want to be working all the time because I love it. Don't fucking believe you, Dave. Just don't. That's not how you want to be living your life, surely, until you're 70.
One of my other bugbears is that startups hold on to that status for far too long. I'll be speaking to companies where they're like, yeah, we're still a startup. I'm like, you started like 20 years ago.
Up for 20 years.
It's like, it's so weird. Honestly, so strange that like that phrase is still used. But I think I said this to a friend the other day. I wonder if it's that whole thing of then they can hide behind mistakes because they can go, oh no, I'm a startup. So that.
Yeah.
Whoopsie.
I also feel like there's this weird kind of glorification of startups. Like, startups are scrappy, but they work themselves to the bone. You are not selling startup life to me. That is not what I want.
No. It's a really weird one as well, because I think it's like, yeah, it's just strange. It's a very strange thing that people hold on to. And as well as that, it's not that deep.
No, exactly. Exactly. Like, it doesn't really matter what you're called.
If anything as well, I would say like I would want to get to a place where if you're hiding behind it because you don't want to make a mistake, I want to get to a place where we all recognize that everyone makes mistakes. Yeah. Of like, yes, no matter what company you work for, behind that company is a person. And Sharon might have made a mistake and gone, oh, fuck, shit. Yeah. And And then she's like, oh my God, I'm going to fix this. But everything, like one of the best pieces of advice I got given was when I started my first apprenticeship, which was basically, I don't care if you fuck up because you're an apprentice. You're going to fuck up. What I care about is if you try and not tell me and then it gets 100 times worse.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Like we're all humans at the end of the day. When I used to work when I first started my corporate career, I worked in a PR agency, and we used to have this chant that we'd say to ourselves and each other. We would say, it's PR, not ER. It's PR, not ER. It's PR, not ER. So that we were like, okay, I'm not going to die because this thing didn't happen, even though it feels like I might, because it's very stressful. And I still think that to myself now, like, I'm not performing life-saving surgery here. Like, it's all okay.
And then lastly, I'm going to give you some time with this because I normally pre-warn my guests at the beginning of our recording, but it's the last question I ask every guest. And that question is, what's one piece of politically correctness that you really strongly agree with or disagree with? Now, it sounds very serious, but basically to give you a bit of a flavour, we've had anything and everything. So we've had very funny ones like mashed potato is the devil's food and no one should ever eat it. And then we've had the polar opposites of we live in a very woke society and this is all wrong and this is why we need to change it. So I've had anything and everything. It's just a bit of fun to link back to the name of the pod. I say I normally pre-warn you in the intro bits, but I completely forgot and now I'm freeballing it.
No, it's fine. Don't worry. I'm good. My bit of political correctness is, from my own experience of having mental health issues, is the kind of language that we get caught up in around mental health stuff. So when I first started my company, it was called Mad and Sad Club because that's what I was. I was mad and sad. And my friends who were having similar issues to me, we would sometimes just message each other and be like, oh, felt sick while I was brushing my teeth this morning, # Mad and Sad Club. And so I think I wouldn't say to you, you're mad and sad, but because that's for you to decide how you feel. But I think we don't need to be quite so hung up about the words that we use around mental health issues, particularly as someone who has had those experiences themselves. I can use whatever words I like to describe how absolutely insane I was for many years.
I think it's so true, as well, because I get caught up in it with the disability thing. Jesus, there's so many different words that we shouldn't use. Jesus, guys, come on, let
me say what words I want about my own experience, for the love of God.
It's really funny because I think language is a huge part of what we do, and I understand the debate on both sides. Really, it's more like we say, it's just keep it personal.
Yeah.
If that language works for you, and also I don't think if we're playing it in the context of making sure we use the right language, it's also, I want to move to a point where it's rather than using the right language, understanding the context behind the language being used. So if someone comes up to me and goes, Charlie, you're a disabled person. Correct. There is no malice behind it. Whereas someone comes up to me and you can tell they're just trying to take the piss. That's when I'm like, yeah, no, we're not going to, this is why we need to change this. And it's understanding the intent is a massive thing.
Absolutely. People can use the right words, right, in inverted commas, but mean them with malice or use them in a way that is hurtful or undermining or condescending. And I think as well, for me around my own mental health stuff, I do believe that talking about stuff that is considered shameful makes it less shameful. So the more open I would be about my mental health, not the way that I would necessarily make light of it, but I like to communicate with humour, and that makes it easier for people to understand. It makes it easier for people to talk to me about it and maybe talk about it with each other. But I'm totally with you. The words used don't equal positive intent or positive outcome.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm exactly the same. First thing I'll do to walk in, when I roll into a room, is often I'll throw a disability joke in there because people are so touchy about it. They're like, oh, yes, Darren, I'm in a wheelchair. It's fine. You can say it. It's great.
You can even look at the wheelchair if you want, but don't touch.
So it's always that same thing of like, you always like some people don't like it, but I'm always there like cracking weird jokes to kind of like go, yes, we can talk about the elephant in the room.
Yes.
We've all established that I'm ginger, loud, and in fact, in a wheelchair.
Yeah, totally with you. Got to make it funny, or like people just don't say anything. Or
Yeah, 100%. And lastly, on the mental health thing, I just want to come in on this because it's something I always say to friends when you ever meet someone that's like, oh, but mental health isn't like, is a real, this doesn't happen, or you've got the other example I give is, but you've got this going on, you've got that going on, I've only got this going on. Mental health and people's like, what's the word? Ability to maintain in a certain situation is different for everyone. So people can only tolerate what they've been exposed to before. If they've not been exposed to that same level of pressure or that same level of an issue, they're going to crumble because they're like, shit, I don't know what I'm going to do. The way I also give it, to give people a visual example, is what I always say to people. If I say, okay, I'm into the gym. So I go, right, Joe, pick up this 5 kilo weight, and you'll go, okay, yeah, that's fine. But if I suddenly go to you, right, now I'm going to get you to lift 100 kilos above your head, you're not going to be able to do that.
No, I'm not. No. And yeah, like you say, like everyone's experience is personal to them, and there's no like, I don't think comparison is helpful when it comes to like our own individual experiences, whatever it is, whether it's like, you know, stuff that we've experienced as kids or health stuff that we've experienced. It's not that I just personally don't find it helpful because like my experience is mine and your experience is yours, and there's not really any like helpful comparison to be made between them. And I certainly won't be able to lift 100 kilo weight. 5 maybe.
I always said it's the same thing. I end up in like weird disability top trumps situations as well, where someone was like, yeah, but I've got this going on, and you're like, we've all got difficulties, man. Why are we trying to be like, well, yeah, mine's more important.
Oh my God, that is such a brilliant phrase. Disability top trumps. You're so right. Like, let's not fucking play top trumps with our trauma or like whatever's going on for us. Like, let's just all have our own thing and that be fine.
Yep, all have our own thing and have a level of understanding of like, we don't have to fully understand everything. We just have to lead with empathy. This is like what I keep saying to people. Be like, you don't understand it, cool, but do your best to try and like support.
Yeah. And like, don't be afraid to ask, like, you know, what do you need? How can I support you? Is there any support that you need? Because like, if you've not had the same experience as another person, you're never going to know.
Yeah. And sometimes it's that old Simon Sinek thing of sometimes they just need someone to sit in the mud with them. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's also really important. But on a happier note, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an amazing conversation. And of course, guys, as I always do, I'll link all of Joe's details below. So if you do want to check her out or get in contact with her, I'm sure if you got any questions, she'll be more than happy to answer them. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Joe.
Thanks for having me. It's been fab.